Okay, unfortunately we don't have an update from District Manager for today's session, so I'm from the Research Investment team, or the Research Investment and Business Development team, as we're now called. And so I'm going to give just a brief introduction to the team. I'll talk a little bit about, so we've recently released a new 10-year R&D plan for SRA, and then I'll talk a bit about the 10th anniversary research fund, which the board had announced last year. So I'll give an update on that. There's been a few changes in the team. So I think when this seminar series was on last year, Duncan Ferguson was executive manager and Tanashi was looking after Research Mission 1, which included the milling stuff. Tanashi is now the general manager looking after the team, and in the near future, Research Mission 1 and the milling projects will be taken over by Mui. So that's the main change there. What does the team do? So as well as the looking at the strategic plans for R&D and actually managing the investment, previously this team looked after more the contestable fund. So SRA have core activities, contestable activities. They're now all together managed by this team. So we have oversight of all the investments being done by SRA. We're looking after partnerships, project management, IP and commercialisation, and then we have oversight of the internal research committee and our external research funding panel. So everything related to the R&D side of the business. Okay, so as I said, we've recently developed a new draft 10-year R&D plan for SRA. And a couple of weeks ago we had an industry engagement session in Brisbane where we had just over 80 industry reps, and we presented this plan. So this is a new way of doing things for SRA. In the past we would do industry consultation, come up with a plan to address that, and go ahead and have a funding call and go ahead and contract research to address those problems. We're adding an extra step where we've done the consultation and listened to what we think the priorities are. We developed the plan and we've gone back to industry to say, are we on the right page here? Is this set of priorities what you're looking for? I think we were pretty close, but there's some industry feedback that we're taking on board at the moment. I'll talk a bit about the timeline for that. So we still have our 5 research missions, with milling in Research Mission 1. For this 10-year R&D plan, we've changed things around a little bit. So we've got 5 programs of work. First one is the Variety Development Program, which you'll be familiar with, which is really about creating the potential, agronomy to achieve the potential, crop protection, safeguarding the potential, milling to deliver the potential, and then overarching over all of these, there's the adoption program, which is about reaching the potential. So trying to make it a bit easier to understand. And within each of these programs, there's a set of priorities. So main thing of interest for you will be the milling area, and those priorities are about optimising current operations, ensuring that we have a skilled professional workforce, and then looking at opportunities to diversify income. So optimising operations. There's a clear focus on trying to improve the efficiency of what we do at the moment. It's really about increasing sugar recovery or reducing costs. And also looking at reducing capital to adopt new processes. Some of it is about improved measurement, so getting sensors in as a step towards increased automation in the mill. And Jeff will talk a bit about some of this. And then improving cane rail, which is not as much of an issue down here, of course. In terms of the need for continual improvement, the small milling research projects are really one of the things that we're doing in this area. And recent examples, so operational things like addressing surging in shredders and reducing sugar losses due to microbial degradation. As I said before, getting sensors into the mill is an important area where small milling projects can be well suited. A few examples there, the mud level sensor project that Wilmar ran, Sunshine Sugar's Crist Observer project, and then the purity sensor work that was done here at Rocky Point. And then also testing new technologies that are in use overseas, things like falling film evaporators, as an example. So the small milling research project idea will continue. It probably needs a bit of a rethink in terms of the budget and the timing, acknowledging that some of these projects get contracted later than ideal, and having one season is sometimes problematic. Just showing you the current projects that are underway at the moment. Jeff will talk about these first two. The last one looks quite similar to one of the projects that Jeff will talk about. It's also looking at assessing billet quality using machine learning. The difference here is that this one, it's looking not so much at billet length, but billet quality. So trying to detect split and damaged billets. And also it's using a camera system that's potentially a little bit better than what they're using at Tully. And as Jeff will indicate, we did have the opportunity to test both of these systems side by side at the Tully mill towards the end of last season. So Jeff will give us a bit of information about that. Ensuring that we have a skilled workforce, that we train and retain staff is a priority. Jeff will talk about the current project in his sessions later on. And I guess SRA are also investing in the capability development program that is funding Gabriel, and also the undergraduate placement in mills with SRA. And then the last area about diversification. This is an area where SRA don't have the budget to really do diversification projects, but what we can do is do things like feasibility studies to try and give the industry an idea of what scale that you need to be operating at to be economically viable with some of these opportunities. So we've looked at things like high value animal feed, hydrogen from the gas, bioplastics from cane juice, opportunities like that, doing feasibility studies, which are available to the industry. Of course, there's other projects, other investments that SRA have done that are not directly related to milling, but do relate to increasing cane supply. If you look at ASMC's T34 target, obviously the variety development program, improved harvesting coming through the HarvestMate app, RSD diagnosis in the mill, so we're looking at both LAMP and NIR approaches to measure RSD status of every rake of cane that's coming through the mills, so we can then inform the grower and hopefully get them to adopt improved management practices. Looking at alternatives for cane grubs. At the moment, cane grubs we're dependent on imidacloprid as a sole control agent. Imidacloprid is under review by the APVMA at the moment, so its future has a few question marks over it. So we're looking at alternative chemicals and biological control options for cane grubs. We've got a project looking at improving ratings for chlorotic streak, which will provide more information to growers about optimal varieties. In terms of biosecurity, we're updating the sugar industry biosecurity plan at the moment. That will provide a new assessment of offshore biosecurity threats, so we can invest in the highest demand areas there. And we're getting towards the end of a project looking at getting the required data for an emergency use permit if exotic moth borers turn up. So with this 10-year plan, as I said, we've presented the plan to industry a couple of weeks ago. We're incorporating industry's feedback at the moment, looking to go back to industry for additional consultation next month if required, and then endorsement by the SRA board in May, and hopefully release the document by the end of the financial year. And just a reminder, so going forward, the plan, this is a 10-year plan, but we will evaluate how things are going at the end of every year, and we'll be looking to go back to industry, re-engage about whether priorities have changed, whether we're still on track, give updates to the research that's underway. And we've got a meeting planned in Townsville in March next year. That's in people's calendars already. So we'll be looking to come back to you all next year. So now an update on our 10th anniversary fund. This was announced by the board late last year. The idea here is we're investing an additional 16 million over the next 3 to 4 years, trying to kickstart R&D again. There was a bit of a lag over the last couple of years. We're looking to get more collaboration between industry and researchers and between different research groups, and continue with this industry engagement. So when the board announced this plan, they provided some indicative pots of money, I guess, into which they would ideally like to allocate this money. Obviously, it's dependent on what proposals come in. For instance, 15% of the funds would go towards diversification opportunities. I guess the thing of interest for the milling sector is 23% or thereabouts going towards at least investigating the feasibility of a centre of excellence for sugarcane milling. So just before Christmas, stage 1 closed. Stage 1 was really looking for investment concept, so maximum of 4 pages, give us your idea and justify why that's a relevant idea for the industry. 163 proposals were received. We've reviewed them internally, and at the moment, so we've assembled expert groups for, I think there are 7 or 8 groups analysing these proposals. 2 external reviewers, some internal SRA reviewers as well, so typically about 6 people in each of these expert panels. They've been reviewing over the last couple of weeks, and we're having meetings this week to shortlist and make recommendations to the research funding panel and then the board. The hope is that applicants will find out in May, and those that have been shortlisted will then be asked to submit a full research proposal. The idea being that if you're, only a proportion of the proposals will go to the next stage. If you're asked to do a full proposal, there's a much higher likelihood that you'll be successful. So we don't want to give researchers too much work if they're not likely to be successful. Some projects should be relatively straightforward. They might be direct procurement. We're hoping to get them underway as early as possible in the new year. Others, there likely to be a co-design phase where we work with the research provider to develop the proposal more. Those might be later, September. As I said, 163 proposals were received. 13 of those were in the milling space. Agronomy was the most popular, crop protection and diversification coming in after that. And Jeff will talk about some of the proposals that QUT put in around milling and diversification. And if we look at our research missions, with agronomy the most popular, research mission 4 has the most, but research mission 1 at about, what, 20 or about 32, I think. So I think that's it for me. Any questions about any of that?
With the RSD, your milling one,
Yep.
would it be any benefit to have the camera or whatever the detection on the harvester? So then the harvester knows exactly where the RSD is in the block. Because if it's in a rake number, he could have finished that whole block and then spread the RSD through the whole block. But if it's on the harvester itself, it'll tell you what.
That's a possibility, and it might be that something like NIR could be put on the harvester. Yeah, I think...
Because the harvester won't clean itself during the paddock, but if he knows a section of that farm has got RSD, he knows, right, I have to hose it down once it...
That's an interesting idea, yeah.
So yeah, that's all.
One of the other things that has been undertaken up in the Herbert through their district plan is setting up an on-harvester sterilisation unit. Saw some videos of that last week, and that's looking quite effective. I think they're saying 40 seconds to... So you could, as you're driving from one paddock to another, you could potentially do a sterilisation, which would tie in nicely with what you're suggesting. Yeah. So I think the NIR calibrations, if they're working in the mill, then yeah, potentially you could. Yeah. Nice idea. Any online questions? Sound like it?